I thought I saw my parents and grandparents playing together what I thought was best of the innovation. It wasn't. It turned him into a 7-year-old kid who believed in magic again.
Welcome to Unnatural Selection, a show about competition, innovation, and the strategies shaping tomorrow's frontiers. I'm Nick Encina. Each week, we speak with pioneers shaping the future.
This is episode number 16. Today, we're talking about play and why it might be more important than we think. In a world increasingly shaped by screens, the need for real, shared experiences hasn't disappeared. It's intensified. In this episode, we explore how immersive environments are designed to bring people together, how psychology, storytelling, and engineering combine to create memories that last decades, and why some of the most enduring innovations don't feel technological at all. Our guest is Denise Weston. Denise is a globally recognized inventrepreneur, director of imagination at Infinite Kingdoms, and playologist, whose career bridges psychology, storytelling, invention, and immersive technology. She's the founder of Invent Worlds, a trailblazing venture crafting sensory-rich, AI-powered experiences designed to do one thing brilliantly: make human connection the most powerful technology in the world. With over 150 patents, Denise has helped bring to life some of the world's most beloved interactive attractions that bring people together to play in water parks, theme parks, museums, and the live-action gaming technology, including the iconic MagiQuest, where magic becomes real with the wave of a wand. Still casting spells daily at every Great Wolf Lodge across the country, MagiQuest is just one of her many enduring innovations. An Edmund Hillary Fellow and resident of New Zealand, Epic Mega Grant recipient and adjunct professor at Purdue University, her inventive fingerprints span Universal Studios, Disney, SeaWorld, and Six Flags. But her favorite title remains Forever 7-Year-Old Who Still Believes in Magic. Let's go.
Denise, welcome to Unnatural Selection.
Thanks for having me.
I start with the same question just to level set. And so before we get started, Denise, could you please tell us what business you're in and what your role is within that business?
I list myself as a playologist, a director of imagination, but truly at my heart, I'm an inventor because I look at the combination of innovation and imagination and seeing what's possible that isn't there yet, and figuring out ways to do it on a scale that can be everything that starts at home but brings people out into the world to play or to recreate or to have an experience and memories and curated experiences that really drive home how important it is to get away from the mundane and to have an incredible time with people you love, meet new friends, and be someplace that feels extraordinary.
It's amazing how play factors into so many things that we do, including professions that you might not even think along those lines. Like, for example, in my world, you can think of it in terms of software development. There's a common phrase that people use, which is eat your own dog food. And the idea there is you create something for a particular demographic of clientele, but the more that you can use it yourself in everyday life and how you do your work, the more that you can then both benefit from the creativity and the pleasantness of the software solution, but also you can spot bugs and other features or inefficiencies much easier to be able to fix them in real time. But a component of that is almost like how you play within your own industry, right? Because instead of thinking too theoretically about what this software product should do, the times that I've experienced the most pleasure in building something is where I get to benefit and play with my own product. And when I've interviewed people in different fields, whether it be video games and other areas, you can see the same thing. Like there's an element of play that makes their work that much more fulfilling. And so what you just said really resonates with me. It's not just a component of our life where we say, this is where I play, but how do we infuse play within everything that we do?
I also have these methods of understanding what play is and understanding like other words that take shape with it. And I look at the audience, understand the market, And when we use the word play, it triggers in us something that's childish, especially for adults. But we do it all the time. We say we're going to play a video game. We're going to play tennis. We're going to play, we use the word as this description of something we love doing or want to do, or it's our sport. Especially when you insert play, you're not saying I'm going to study tennis. You say you're going to play tennis, just on a overall basis. So the word becomes misunderstood, even though we constantly use it in all these different ways. And here's the thing about it. I teach a course at Purdue University, and it's about the future of invention, which is funny because you're saying invention, adding future to it's like a double loaded word. So invention is future, but I'm adding future to the word because I want it to be seen as something that is just as important as liberal arts or any other sort of rounded way of handling what you're learning and looking at it from a perspective that's all new, because that's innovation has to happen in some way that you have skill sets that are part of who you are, part of what you're good at, even things that you need to learn and get better at. Starts in that playing with it form. And when we were best at it, without all the regulations of whether you can or not, is before magical thinking ends between 5 and 7 years old. Now, technology is sort of ending magical thinking developmentally earlier because knowledge and access and different kinds of more sedentary play and losing other things to play, becoming part of just one play cycle and not experimenting is starting to get younger and younger. So I have the students in the very beginning. They give me a whole sort of summary about the invention course. I said, it's going to be like nothing you did before. And sometimes, if not always, I'm inventing the invention course in the middle of the invention course. So every time I do it, I have a new set of people, students, they're coming in from different degrees. They're either at the end of their journey or the mid of their journey. And I'm learning from that. It's my favorite part of that whole process. So the way the class works is we begin like a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint's going to get filled to the end that it becomes an entrepreneur Shark Tank moment where they can present their invention to actual entrepreneurs and investors. So they have the full gamut of it, of building what it's like to come up with something and then figure out how to bring it to market. So when you use the word imagination, people think you're dreaming up something in a blue sky. Still need to do that, needs to happen. But when you combine it with the science of invention and the business model of invention, it becomes something possible and purposeful. And you're looking at it with all kinds of different views. So
Mhm.
I start off by saying, 5 years from now, it's a game I play with everybody. I want them, they don't even know what's going to happen in the course, but I want them to tell me 5 years from now, you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to see yourself in exactly the way you hope that if you started the invention of you now, what would it become? What would you be doing that day that you woke up in the morning? I want to know everything from your family life to it's not just a dream or vision, it's practical. You're inventing yourself for 5 years from now. And I get to that beginning of the PowerPoint. So they start to talk who they are, not just today and what they're doing and what they came here for, what they're studying. Going to that school and what are you studying is usually what people ask. We should be asking, what do you want to become? Like, what do you hope you get from all this learning so you can innovate and advance yourself and maybe advance others? What is your goal? Once we have that formula, that's like the middle place. Now we know the trajectory. It can change at any time. I hope it does. I hope you're inspired by other students or myself to look at that journey. We hike back. I say, I want you to go back. Same way, wake up in the morning and I want you to play for the day. So let's look at an age you're comfortable playing. Is it 5? Is it 10? Tell me everything you used to do that you played. I want you to tell me the things that you would do if anyone stopped you, you would be upset. It's the one thing you have to do. And I show them a litany of different things that they can use to identify play. It
Mm.
becomes things like, it could be a sport. It could be, I keep changing it. It could be anything digital. It could be reading a book. It could be putting puzzles together. And I have maybe 200 different play things that I just kept throwing in them. Then they go back, they create the next part of the PowerPoint, which is how they played. When they come to me with their responses, and I did this in a TED Talk, and I go over this play cycle, they write down all the things that they used to love. They write down all the things in the what other people they tried and liked, but that person had to instigate it. It was something that's aspirational to them, but they did enjoy it. And then I talk about over time, what of those things that you did are no longer in your life? Like you used to love doing this, but they're not there. Then I go back to their 5 years. I said, you're going to need that play the way that you did that to reach that goal, because that is your intuitive superpower.
Mhm.
Inside you, as you're playing, it is our most natural form of body mind connection where we are in not being judged. We're supposed to play. It's coming out in these new and different ways. And as you grow and be inspired by the people you meet, the things you're doing, the toys you have, the movies you watch, the things that make you fantasy life come together or what's magical to you, starts transforming into skill. And then I have all the students look at that play and evaluate each other. This is what this person wants to come. What's the skill? And so they're comparing, and I said, what do they need to bring back into their life? So it becomes a skill to come. And it doesn't have to be one that's around innovation, but it normally is because
Yeah.
play is innovation. It's about practicing, it's experiencing, it's getting through it. Once you look, there's a lot of people who believe in playology. They understand this they're very strong about that communication. But our school systems and everything else that tells us, including higher education, is we separate those out into hard blocks, but they're not. They're all, the more you integrate them, the better you're going to be as a whole human being to be all in that experience.
I totally agree. As you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, it's too bad that your course starts in college.
Yeah.
You, you should
So
have
I'm very
something like
dogged
that in high
about that.
school.
I'm dogged about doing it in kindergarten.
Yeah.
If I can get kids to understand in a play when physical play and other kinds of plays are starting to drop off, they're not businesses anymore. It's hard to make money in, physical play things. And the digital world is an empire into itself that's beginning to become this very one juggernaut way of playing. We put kids into sports, we do all these things, but if they were able to start using those techniques as a kindergartner, they would hold on to some of this and
And
not let it go.
exactly. And not lose it, right? It sounds like the first thing that
Yes.
you do is try to stimulate their memory to say, how did you used to play? That's why I was thinking, I'm like, well, what if we made it so that they don't lose it in the first place?
Yeah, they
Right?
don't lose it in the
Because,
first place.
yes.
I say in my TED Talk, never stop playing. That's like, I point out, I'm like, it's when I was 7, I had a choice. My favorite thing to do when I was 7 is I would invent worlds. I would put them in these, and I'm a mirror, and I have all these things sticking on the wall. I stand on top of my bed, and the mirror was in front of me, and I had a show. And in the show, I would talk about all these worlds that I invented. I'd be in those worlds. I'd line up all these things that I would talk to. I brought people in for interviews, like I was kind of Carol Burnett. I'm aging myself, and all these different magnificent things. And it was like my 7th birthday coming up. And I went, I'm going to stop doing this. And I looked at myself. I said, no, you never stop playing. And I haven't. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was my personal commitment to myself. It is why I'm an innovator. It's why I invent. It's how I'm like my number one skill of all time isn't the stuff that comes from my thinking. It comes from what I observe. The
Yeah.
most important thing, as and the students all, when I ask them, so what do you think my superpower is? It's the hardest one for me to do because I like to talk. But what do you think is, and so I'm giving them hints, what do you think my ultimate superpower is as an inventor and as a prolific, attraction builder and dreaming the big dream? What do you think it is? And they're like, "Oh, you're very creative." I said, yes, yes, but it's not my superpower. My superpower is both a part of me, and it's also something I was heavily trained in as a psychologist. I'm a great observer. My brain, my body takes in because you do that as, your body starts to recycle what what it means to observe, to answer the right question. It's a very specific rote way you're learning in school. And when you're observing and you're not just trying to answer the right question, the information that isn't in this linear path is brilliant. It's amazing, extraordinary. It's the
Mhm.
most incredible parts of life that get missed because our brains are getting trained to prompt ourselves for specific responses, right, wrong, A, B, C, D, F. You start to get into all these different mind things where the answers are much bigger than that. And if
Mhm.
you give yourself permission to continue to still be playing while you observe heavily, what you're taking in, the most observant part of it is then it's here. It's in your body, it's in your mind, you never forget it. It starts to build on itself. And whether it's something you observed as a kid or something that you observed at work or something that you played with, it changes the memory cycle, actually the whole chemical cycle of who you are as a human being when you treasure these things and you understand that they are the most valuable parts of you. What you've seen and observed and how you play and continue those skills to express it. All of that should be done from cycle of birth to death. And if
Mhm.
we honored wisdom, guess who the smartest people in the world can be if we trained their brains to stay alive and we valued it, but we didn't think they were old? Are people who are getting older. There used to be culturally, their wisdom was the most precious because of the years experienced. We stored it differently than we do now. We have all kinds of ways in which we turn it into language or we turn it into code even. We didn't respect just pure observation and memory and the things we did, the experience we had as the most valuable knowledge in the world.
Yeah, I so much of what you say resonates. As you know, the premise behind this podcast is about imagination and experience, and how do we extract and unpack it in such a way that others can benefit and learn from it. Whether
Yeah,
you're in uh, athletic footwear, in healthcare, or playology, there's a pattern, right? There are differences, obviously,
that's
but then there
right.
are also like some fundamental similarities when it comes to imagination, when it comes to exploration, when it comes to accepting failure, when it comes to, and even the structures and how you think about different types of innovation that you use within your final product or service, whether you're thinking about the experience, you're thinking about the product, you're thinking about features, or you're thinking about delivery and so on, or even the network. Um, that I think we can learn a lot. But if we pull it back now and we just want to learn a little bit more about what it is exactly that you do, can you give us a quick overview of the companies that you're involved with and that they play in immersive play and experience design?
So, when I tell people that I'm a theme park developer and I create attractions that are all around the world, they usually ask me a question like roller coasters. I can design and develop roller coasters, but my focus is on social experiences together. And there's a lot of them. They're like 90% should be social experience. Sometimes there's storytelling or they're theme parks or museums in which we want to tell you about this item we have in our collection or, it's coming from the smart or the design people. My thing is to bring out the most fun between people, for people, and then heighten the experience because most loved attractions in the world are the memories they create with each other. So, when you leave going from behind a screen to something that you're physically going to leave the house and do something, the treasured moments are the ones that you remember in a way, even not so great memories that you get to work out for the rest of your life with, and you get to have those memories. And to make those, have that happen to you is a bit of a science. It's a bit of a understanding of creativity and design and innovation and unique, what makes you different than the person's theme park across the way. So I create attractions that are quite unique, that involve a lot of social integration since 94, but prior to that, I was a psychologist and wrote books on play. And that reason I went from being a psychologist and working with families, especially deaf families and their children, was because I loved the language of understanding the sensory experience that happened when people were playing. And using body language in play with deaf children or their hearing parents became a big step towards communication and understanding each other. And I thought, I do that reactively to the problem at hand. I don't do it proactively. But if I was able to knit together in some way these spaces and experiences that kind of brought people together in the same methods that I bring people together when they're hurting, when I can bring them together when they're hopeful to have a good time together, when they're hopeful, not correcting something, but actually expanding on something. You're actually doing the same thing. How can I do it at a larger scale? How can I do that? It started with books and it was toys, and then it became these spaces, these big theme park spaces and attractions. So a lot of it's very interactive and family oriented.
I love that. It's less about the product or the technology and more about the social experience that's enhanced by that product or technology, which brings me, you were behind the creation of the Magic Wand experience at Great Wolf Lodge,
Yeah.
which my kids know very well. And it's a truly immersive and innovative concept. Can you walk us through the process of developing that idea and how it transformed the guest experience at the lodge?
So, Uh, as an inventor, I'm a I go into these prolific stages of observance and seeing in the world what's there, but it's not being used in specific ways. Hence why patents for the sake of invention, obviously for business and protection and other things, but for me, they become this sort of gateway, this sort of strength towards market of looking at what would have a competitive edge, what would be a really good business model around something that is happening in people's lives, that is becoming a big part of people's lives, but in big scale. And being able to understand that if I'm making it about social, what are the little ingredients that happen in it? And it happened during a time in the early 90s when I started venturing into toy making. I also was working with toy company like Hasbro, and in some cases early on with Disney and museums. And I was sort of like the translator between, high profile entertainment developers like Disney, the museum, the learning specialists, the people that have a goal to make something happen, especially hands on with kids. So they're learning something, there's a science behind it. And I thought, you can do all that without putting that on top of the environment and the kids if you know how to work the room and how to create more of an attraction around it. So you need these designers to help you communicate what's going to happen. This is in the early 90s when it wasn't as, well known to have hands-on museums or whatnot. My challenge at the time was my daughter, who is part of how we know each other, was 3 at the time. She's 34 now. And I was given a little floppy disk to put on my computer. It was called Play School Puzzles. The idea was that they were onto something, that kids will play puzzles on a digital device, like a computer. There's a big computer. And when you do that, they would absorb their time like one of the best toys. I did it with her, who she's an avid physical player and dreamer and puzzle maker. The moment she went behind that screen, I can see it in her whole body. She's very smart, very good, and she got lost in it. And I had a mom reaction, not just a psychologist, or my mom reaction is, oh no, oh wow, this gaming, this starting at preschool, it's going to take over their lives. And my rejection of it was like, fight it. It's, don't let this become part of the world. You got to fight it. I'm like, no, there's some good parts to it. There's something that's good, but how do I make it so it's physical? How do I make it so that architecture of how it works with the engagement process is actually a physical engagement process? How do I make it social so it's not just the person in the screen? How do I make so that technology that's driving it is like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain and it feels like magic? That wonderful feeling that is so great about attractions that use special effects and other things is to suspend disbelief and get you into a place like it's really happening. I have a fun story about that I like to tell. So you trade in this idea that all it is this one specific thing where the game is being played like that. And I just melted it across the architecture of life and started writing patents on what was trackable humans. So really science ordered technology ordered before even Google is a thing. So you think about no phones, nothing's tracking us, using an RFID signal that would track people around an experience that would come to life in a way that they could play the same game that they were doing in a physical world, never realizing it was this thing on the screen being brought to life in a huge way. We did it with these little RFID badges where they would tag in and they would put balls and shoot them out of, blasters and go up and down the slides. And the points that they got were curated and it'd be on a big scoreboard and they were in for hours. They were supposed to give this very expensive badge back. They didn't. They would take it because in gaming, you want to store your level. All that work you did is meaningful to you. It's like a
Mhm.
degree. It's like this advanced thing. So we started selling them. And I think if I can sell a band, what else can we sell? How can we raise the whole revenue model by coming up with ways? So the magic wand was created. And then once we had the ability to step back and use infrared and other things, truly make this magical game come to life, that's how Magic Quest was born. It was actually observing my daughter go down a rabbit hole that I wasn't happy with. And instead of my saying, no computer time, I said, that's got value. I love what it's doing. I like how it's engaging you. How do I apply it in something I do like that as a mom I want to do? Like 50% of the players who are avid players are moms. They
No
love
kidding.
so there's little tricks in the psychology of it. That little book of wisdom is a checkoff list, which is part of the female structure of looking at things is like, we did this, we did this, we did this. They're keeping track, they're organizing the family, want to know where everybody is. And they don't understand a game. They don't want to do it. They don't, but they did understand that. So the permission to play, that invitation is, you have a checklist. Let's go shopping. Let's go do it. I'm not making fun of women and saying that all women do this. I'm just saying the gatherers, the collectors, and the hunters, going out. There's methods and reasons why those combinations work really well.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. It's adding a layer of structure to the chaos of watching your child, right? You
Yes.
don't want to you don't want to put them in a leash and say you can't play because you're there for the sense of playing, but you want to have a system which says, okay, right now we're here. Now we're gonna in 5 minutes we're gonna go to this other stand, and I know where that is, and I
Yes.
know you're gonna want to go there, so that means I'm not gonna lose you, and so I can kind of follow
Oh,
along this game. You can have all the fun you want to, but I know where we're starting, where we're ending. It gives me a structure to what our play is gonna look like.
and guess what happened? This is the best part of all. This always gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. Gaming, especially back then, was evil. To boomers, like watching their kids grow up with this gaming and watching them, quote, play less and less. So the feeling of the division of like video games being brought to life was a big disconnect. The magic of the wand, which where's my a good wand. I used to have them on the table, but I've been bringing them out for people to play with.
Which I know you have the original wand, right?
I have the God one. Yes, I do. The original one, which is a great story with my grandson. I told you about it. That this wand. Oh, can I just grab it for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
So these magic wands, they have these toppers that come off, so you can be like your own little clan. I've got a different one for different reasons why you're in this clan. You are part of the Dragon Clan, which is like how video game plays. Are you a warrior? Are you this? Are you that? Or you're the evil dark side, which people like to play, the hordes or, the majestics. And it gives you a path. The system is actually smart enough to know what you've chosen. And when one can wake up and read, it knows your identity forever. This is in the late 90s to early 2000s.
Yeah, so
The invention.
this predates Harry Potter. So when the Harry Potter stories came out, it must have been an explosion for
It,
this
it was,
concept.
it was, but it wasn't because we didn't want to tell that story. And so we were really careful to make it the story isn't driving the experience. It's all behind it. Like everything had a story, every character had a reason. There was a whole like 500-page document for Magic Quest, the first one in Myrtle Beach, based on it. But what we wanted to do was make them the superhero. They had a name. Their name would pop up every time they waved their wand. They were incredibly special. Every time they got a power, which we lined up in these little segmented ways, you got a power, a power, a power as it's going. And this is the aha moment that people are like, I'm winking when I realize it happens, and I wink at the staff and I go, because the mother or the grandparent who's holding the book of wisdom converts. About 50% of them would convert from being, where are my kids? That never mind that. I want to get my powers. Seriously, if you look at Grey Wolf now, at the end, the kids are passed out in their pajamas on the floor.
And
And
these
mom's
parents
like,
are playing.
I got one more. Just stay right there. She
That's
got to
amazing.
get it off her list. And it became threatening, from very threatening to magical to amazing to they all trying to beat the dragon at the same time. It could, like, some of this is like, oh, yay. It was beyond my biggest dream, was that the whole family would play together, including the grandparents. And those little minutia moves I made by the Book of Wisdom, or the way you set up, the way you got powers that were easy left to right and got harder and harder. And then you combine those powers to do these big adventures, is structurally gameplay. It's how the role-playing gameplay works, giving them identities and then never losing their information. And they take this home. I have, honestly, the most best case scenarios for me is I meet these kids who are now adults, um, taking their kids to Magic Quest, and they are amazed with how much they remember. They talk about the experience they had with their other friends. They have this whole like conversation. There's like probably like 5-6 million of these wands and people around. But this is all heavy technology. It's all in here. There's RFID in here. There's infrared here. There's a unique ID that does it. There's a gravity strip that allows it to tick off, and all this was patented. It's now expired. Those ideas of using heavy case technology that feels and looks and is magic was able to translate it into giving people all these different things. So the invention literally came from observance of this interaction of watching these digital experiences take over our lives, and then launching it into these physical spaces where it did all that. And the mom who's like, and the grandparents like, I don't understand what's going on. Their entire being is in it. And that's one of my favorite stories of all time. As I walk out of Myrtle Beach, the wands don't work unless there's a receiver in the data. Now, we didn't have phones like that before, so it wasn't with us. This dad goes up to a street light that's in this sort of courtyard area outside of Magic Quest. And he goes like this. His whole family is looking around him. And he looks to see if anyone's looking, and they're all looking. The kids, other people's families are looking at him, and he puts it down. And the laughter between them was hysterical. I was bawling at that point. It's like, okay, I thought I saw my parents and grandparents playing together, what I thought was best of the innovation.
It wasn't. It turned him into a 7-year-old kid who believed in magic again. He thought he can make that light. He forgot. He forgot all about it. He was there. He arrived back into it. And the whole family's like, did he just do that? Did he actually think he was going to turn the light on? I wish I would. But if he thought for a minute I had the power to make that light go off. Wow.
Hmm.
How magical is it was something unexpected that happened that I
Yeah.
realized that too is the goal. That
Well,
was
you
it as
tapped
well.
Yeah, you tapped into, an innate sense of fantasy and imagination. And so, if we think about everything that you're talking about, we try to distill it down to some of the science behind that. And immersive play experiences are often deeply emotional and interactive with elements of cognitive science involved and so on. How do psychological principles, you have a degree in this, so how do
Mhm.
psychological principles like emotional engagement and motivation guide your process, your design process when creating these experiences?
So, some of the most important things that happen when you are designing for the purpose of social engagement is I have these different, I talk about them a lot. People who, when you think about who they're for, what the market's for, and you take that first swath, no matter what product is, we were just talking about this by angling the podcast in such a way that you start off with information that those are in that world or in that science or in that field would agree, like, and learn from. And then if you move towards people that don't know about it, but if they did, it would give them a larger scope of who they are as human beings. In the emotional set of it, I never go after the invention. The goal isn't the kid who believes in magic, the kid that wants a magic wand. It's all there. Yes, yes. I go deeper and I look for the observed Bretzler. They have arrived, but they're not going to do it. And if I can figure out how to get them to open their arms and take a chance, which is when the mother opens the book, when the grandpa starts to tell them the secrets of where everything is, suddenly is starting to get what's going on, is not threatened or arm pretzeled anymore, then suddenly a different thing happens to them. They have purpose other than taking care of their family or being the one. They are motivated to try to learn. Now they want to learn. They're not just sitting on a bench or backing off. And then you create this relationship. That's the most important part. All experiences are relationships, not just emotional. It's like a kind of truce, an understanding. If I take care of you and I make it safe, I'm not going to do anything to you that's going to make you feel silly. If I give you a chance to still be an adult, but to be powerful and magical, if you trust this, if you trust it, I'll open you up to something you've never done before so you can share the most amazing experience with your family and uncross your arms and become part of it. That social engagement is psychological. It's a trigger in our brain that says, me, not for me. I fear that. I don't want it. I'm unsafe. I don't want to be. So in therapy office, you create safety. You try to figure out how people are going to feel safe in that situation. People don't want to feel dumb. They don't want to feel like they don't understand something, that someone's smarter than them. They don't want to be in a situation they might get hurt or somebody else gets hurt. All those things become part of the science of that one simple fact that if you're here, but you're like this, you're still here. So what am I going to do to get you so that you come back not like this, but opened to what just happened? And it's better for business, better for everyone's wands, the more wands are sold. I mean, on the business side, it's all good. But for me, if I am directed in that purpose, it feels like I'm back in my therapy room when one family at a time made a difference. And they're in control of that one thing that happened. Not me, the therapist. I didn't do anything magical. They did. And that's their memory. They get to say, I did this with my kids. This thing was my safety zone. It kind of coaxed and trained me through it. And I leave with those memories. And 10, 15, 20 years later, those kids come back of remembering it was one of the most playful times I ever had with their parents. My God, the last time my grandpa was still alive, he was the wisdom keeper. He had all the different things. Those are the most precious things you could ever do if someone's going to trust you with their time in a physical space. Check.
Can
That's the most important part.
It's fascinating. As you were talking, I was thinking about just the process of innovation, and it often starts with identifying your key audience, right? Your demographic. And some fields are very specific. If you're designing athletic footwear, it's like, well, we're targeting 17-year-old basketball players. And when you
Yes.
have such a very clear demographic, it makes it so much easier to be like, okay, well, what do 17-year-old basketball players like? And what colors do they like? And, why do
Yeah.
they play basketball and so on? Um, as I was thinking, as I was hearing what you were saying, I was thinking to myself, like, well, how do you define the demographic? Because on the one end, you have the 5 or 10-year-old child, then you have the mom, and then you have the grandfather. And so, like, how do you constrain the demographic you're targeting enough to be able to create a truly compelling and rewarding and pleasant experience for that person when that person is every member of the family?
Yeah, I know. So what's curious about that, so when you have a target like sports shoes, I watched the Shaq special when he did Reebok and how he was an innovator and went through this whole thing. It's new on Netflix. Have you seen it?
No.
It's like, so he's the president of Reebok and he goes through this process and they do exactly what you said. It was like, this is their key market. We got to find our top A spokesperson that's going to wear the shoe, what represents it. And they go after that age bracket or up and coming. And I think to myself, that's too bad. Think of all the markets they're missing. Like, okay, for that, that's great. But the boomers want to be relevant to their grandchildren and to wear a pair of shoes like that and to feel like they're in and they're not dated and they're part of something is boomers are like the grandparents who are paying for all that. They're the ones that are buying those shoes. But if they buy a pair for themselves, cha-ching for a Reebok or Nike and how they're able to completely amplify it. So the play with or the understanding is the pretzler, the one that you didn't think you were going to get, that market. It doesn't have to be this narrow line. And if you had people on your team that thought like that, were a little weird and off, and like saying, well, I want to sell a shoe to the grandpa. I don't want them to turn their ankles. I want to think about those things, but I want them to be cool to their 17-year-old grandchildren. I want them to feel like they're a part of something and that they can walk around in spaces and other people nod and look at them, like, all right, look at that's an incredible experience. So,
Yeah.
yes, go get your market, but do you ever think about the ones that you had a perfect chance of doing it for them too, and you just didn't push it that one little bit because 'cause you're not observing. When they're out and showing off their shoes, they're with other people, not always their friends and peers, often family, and often this generation seems to be a little more connected to their boomer grandparents as well. So that whole process of innovation starts with, okay, on a team, you guys go figure out that, you know, 12 to 28-year-old or whatever is going to wear your shoes and they're going to be like a basketball hero. The boomer just wants to be that kid's hero, wants to be cool enough to be thought of being relevant and be in your lives and feel like they're part of something to belong. They want to feel like they belong into that. And even buying the shoe that looks like there's part of it, but is more fitting for somebody of that age, meaning it could be have the loud colors. Sometimes I think, some people love the loud colors, but that there's a reason for it. There's a purpose behind the shoe that's slightly altered. That is really cool for a generation who thinks boomers are cool already because they listen to great music. They listen to rock and all that stuff. You're in, okay? Go sell 'em shoes. But that whole market goes away because they're focused on that one specific thing. And the true innovation is to say, I'm gonna be weird here for a minute. I'm gonna go in a unicorn mode and I'm gonna unicorn off to this little section and I'm gonna pull out a giant market that you're forgetting. And if it doesn't work, at least you came up with a shoe that considers it and one ad, one moment in which you show them getting along with their kids. Oh, wow. What's gonna happen to you? Is it just a
Yeah.
cool, hot, sporty thing that's happening? Or is it the moment they're walking around with each other and you see the whole family in it? They're like in your Reeboks, they're in your innovation. And that doesn't happen. I think
Uh,
that I think it's I think it should. I think they should think about designing for the whole space, for the social moment, not just see what cool shoes I have for this, but look how cool my grandpa is. Look what he's wearing. You know what I mean?
No, as you were saying, I had a eureka moment because I was confused at first because I was thinking, what's your demographic? It actually can be condensed to one thing, which is your inner child, right? Whether you
Yes.
have an inner child, which is effectively your outer child because you're 5 years old, or you have an inner child that's so hidden because you're 55 years old, but it's somewhere in there. You're tapping into that inner child that we all have. Just like to your analogy, if you're designing sneakers, you're targeting that inner sports star that
Yes.
everybody wanted to be, or you're targeting that inner rock star that everybody wanted to be. And so you do have a very well defined avatar or a demographic. It just happens to be like, is it more internal or external or both?
Yes, exactly right. See, an emotion sometimes plays a loud role in the connection. It's a relationship. And relationships is between each other. That's priority. A relationship is with the experience that you feel like you're having a relationship with them. And if you're going to be, then be responsible in that relationship and think through how can I make your relationships work better? What can I do that the meaning and the memories become like driving you through like it's just unforgettable. It's something
Hmm.
that you just want in your minds and your heart forever.
Well, you
That's
also,
emotion too, right?
yeah.
It's emotion, but it's also kind of practical. There's
Hmm.
certain steps that are being put in place to rethink a demographic is a practical decision as a business. That there is, it's just very interesting. I had this discussion with the 3-year-old daughter, who is now the mother of my grandson. We're having this conversation of being too old for something, not being relevant. I said, but boomers are one of the most prolific markets of all time. In fact, they started marketing. They are the market that the boomers came up. You don't really know about the silence that came before them. You know the boomers because there was so many babies they're booming out of control. That's a giant market that's living longer, that's paying for the kids. They're the ones that buy the Nike shoes for Christmas. Like they're paying for the holidays sometimes. They're the ones that have the need and the want, and they want to be even better grandparents than they were parents. And there's that one moment, that shift. But what about me? Like, I'm here, I'm doing this for everybody else, but are you thinking of me? Hell yeah. And the companies or the moments, the inventions that think about other markets than the one you're doing is really what true innovation is. That's number one on it. And if I can, safety is an emotion, expression is an emotion, inner child is an emotion. These are all emotions that I don't want people to think they're emotions that are sappy or now you're getting so like esoteric. No, it's a good business move. It's
Hmm.
a very strong, innovative business move because those competitors, you're beating each other up on the competitive style, be number one with this category. You're forgetting about all these others that you can be number one that are low hanging fruit. Pluck it and do something with it. And if you don't, have somebody come in that's from that generation and help you think about it so that you can aim your arrow towards it. Why not? What it's the harm in trying to figure out with the same thing that you're inventing for that young person? How do you modify that shoe so it becomes something that everyone wants to wear and to feel belong, to feel that's the strongest emotion of all, by the way. And that's the one thing that separates us out from non-living things and machines is a feeling of belonging. That's why the social part, like you are part of something, why you're a clan member, why, not that kind, but why you're a warrior instead of a shadow, right? Like all those different things that I belong to this is
Yeah.
we don't just want our human beingness to be recognized. We also want like our identity, things that make us unique, that say a little bit of a story about ourselves.
But there's also the element of meeting people where they are, because as you were saying, so many things that you're saying just kind of like tap into aha moments in my head of just growing up or things I experienced things. So raising kids, I never thought about this, but they tell you if you're going to talk to your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old, if you really want to connect, get down at their level and look at them
Yeah,
eye to eye, right? So
yeah,
instead of you looking down at them, it's like eye to eye. And that it brought back that train of thought as I was thinking about these imagination worlds that you create because you're bringing out the inner child of the grandfather who's playing with the outer child of the
Yeah.
grandchild, and they're meeting eye to eye. Now they're two
Without
children
that
playing.
lesson, right? Not that lesson, the lesson's gone. Okay, if you want to talk to your child or grandchild, get down at their level. So I don't do that. I just do it. I like literally just figured out ways to get them on their knees and design the experience so they're eye to eye. That's a that's the design of how you do it. Not too many times, because mostly kids want to play up. Starting about 3 5 years old, they want to play like an older sibling or they want to play like an adult. They want to move up to it. So you can stretch that what eye to eye means or what means I'm on the same thing. I do this better, you do this better. And when we share it, that's what creates belonging. So that eye to eye contact, your aha eye moment here is some of the things about technology that are removing these important emotional and physical indicators of knowing somebody's listening to you, heard you, observes you, got to see who you really were. It's eyes, it's body language, it's a shrug, it's a moment, it's the pretzel. All that language is missing quite a bit out of technology today because we're our data sets and how we're studying it, what we're looking at it's really is artificial. It's not
Yeah.
actually authentic. It's pretty artificial.
So as you were saying this, one thing that I started thinking about was eh, as you innovate in your field, because it's about imagination, it can go in a million different directions. And you can now start thinking about, if you think about the business of it, you can think about incremental improvements that leveraging existing infrastructure, or you can start thinking very radically about architectural designs that
Mhm.
change the entire environment, right? So in your case, you had the wand and the RFIDs and all that kind of stuff. And so how do you balance incremental improvements with to existing play experiences versus pushing the more radical boundary pushing designs that require whole new technical capabilities. And especially,
Usually money prevents that.
Mhm.
Funding prevents the radicalness. But if you look through the abstract of the patent and then you start looking at the claims are endless and you are thinking of those things. They are in it. They're grabbable little bites of what you could do with it. You go 150,000 feet up into the air and you get really wild about what you think it could do. And then you can only deploy so much, but you've got 20 years to figure out how the rest of these things. So
Mm.
another thing that I teach in invention is to look at, you don't have to, some people are pro patent, some people aren't. I like looking at them as, sort of like a moment in which you just describe what it is and create utility out of it, unique that never been done before. And then in your claims, go to the extreme of what could possibly happen in a rapid changing world, but focus on the things that are being missed. That not don't focus on what everything is already. You can put it in there anyways, but look at these little segments that become their own heartbeat after a while project. You can go nuts with that. It's about projecting 20 years ahead and trying to figure out what's going to happen with all these things that happen. So I really do think at the bottom of innovation, like at the top and the bottom of it, is the slinky movement that happens when you go way out into the stratosphere and it's like people are like, what are you talking about? Happens a lot. And then you come back down and you go up the rings of the slinky and then other slinkies start bouncing off of it and go in all these directions. If the goal is, I want you all to belong, I want you all to have great memories, I love the social connection, then everything in that space feels like it has purpose and meaning and direction. It's a little weird, some of the things I think of about, most people are like, what are you talking about? Like, why is that important? In the whole foundation of innovation as long as I've got my back and I say it's belonging, it's a great connection. It's a way for people to share experiences together. It's multi-generational. It has all these different aspects that are in it. Check, 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 check. Then I can go and have a wonderful time trying to bring all those aspects to market and have, you know, some protection, some guardrails on it that allow me as a small businesswoman to be able to get investment and move forward with some of those things.
As you were saying that, I was thinking about the process of ideation. And there's so many, and I write about this in some cases about how vulnerable you have to be to come up with that original idea, because original ideas are almost never perfect. They're extremely imperfect, and the job of the inventor and hopefully the team around her or him is to give that idea enough space to become something and go
Mhm.
through a process where you don't kill it prematurely, you give it a chance. But coming up with that original idea is a very brave thing. And when I look at you are obviously a very confident person in what you do. You have tremendous experience and science behind you. You also, and I say this in the most respectful and admiring way, you are eccentric as well. So you
Yeah.
embrace
I call
the
it
idea of
neurospicy.
yeah. Well, you embrace it, and so I can totally see how you come up with these ideas that are radical, and you blow people's minds, and you get a little glee out of how much did I blow your mind, because maybe there's something there, right? But most people aren't,
Yeah.
but most people aren't like that, right? So if we try to distill your process of ideation to people that don't have that confidence and have a fear of looking foolish. And this is
Yeah.
what I write about as well, right? And whether you're innovating in theme parks or you're innovating in software, or anything in between, part of what I try to do is come up with structures that allow people to be foolish in a group setting and structure the thinking of the group. So you go through these phases of thinking, like I use Six Thinking Hats by De Bono, which is right now we're all wearing white hat. It's only
Yeah.
yeses and ands. Don't worry for the people that naturally wear black hats. That's going to come at the end. You'll get your moment, which is only butts and no's, but we're going to go through phases where very structurally we're going to give this idea a
Mm.
chance to blossom into something better. And along the way, we may go through like an economic phase. We may go through a technical feasibility phase. So it may die along the way, but we're going to give it a chance. And if it goes through this funnel and gets through the black hat, then it means there's probably something there. But all of that is really to give people a safe, emotional, psychological space and give it enough ground where everybody can be working in the same plane at the same time. And that was coming to mind as you were thinking about that, because not everybody has the confidence or the space that you have. So I was thinking, like, how do you distill this down to a place where people aren't going to feel like they just sacrifice their whole career because they came up with a crazy idea at Microsoft or at Reebok?
And the passion challenge, the purpose and passion challenge behind the kind of eccentric inventor are the people who see something that others people don't see. Sometimes it fails because it's not the right time, and sometimes it fails because it's not the right idea. And they're mostly one or the other. There's lots of reasons why you didn't get money, you didn't get this, it didn't work, it didn't. So I spend 2 whole classes in invention on failure because that fear, that emotional rock of trigger where people shut down and everything you did up until that moment, until they feel that failure, if they don't know how to process it, everything you did before, in that moment, and after begins to be self-judged and restricted and a bit of impossible, and it's hard to get out of that funk. So what I work on is acceptance of failure. So people say fail fast. I'm like, just fail as fast as you can, as many times as you can, and look at it as an advancement of what you know doesn't work for now. It might work later, but from right now, that didn't work. If you keep writing the failure and have decided that's your story, that's not the purpose of failure. And it's part of our education system. The F at the bottom, the fail on it is bad. You're not supposed to get that. You're not supposed to fail at something. You're supposed to win. All those things, people want to win. That competitive nature, playing a game and winning, it's really important to people. But to fail with purpose and then learn from that purpose and carry on is structurally one of the most important things, as much as the observation of innovation, is not to fear, not to with not to take that step into something because you might fail. You got to fail. It only fails. It has to fail in order for you to know what works. There's no way that you can get something to work automatically until you have tons of failure. It's how you accept that failure, what you process in that failure, not just emotionally, but like how it's respected by everyone around you. You might lose your job, or you do something that's too off, or I go do this boomer thing while, they're trying to, and it doesn't work. But what do you mean it didn't work? What it did do is it sent a message, some little message somewhere. You care about me as a grandparent. You care about my generation. I'll remember that. That's enough. When you
Mm.
go in, they look at the shoes for their grandkids, they're going to say, you tried to get me. It didn't work for me, but you were thinking of me. I like you better.
Yeah.
That's not failure. You can't see it. Maybe the shoes didn't work, but the relationship worked. The relationship actually got more grandparents into the space to buy for their kids.
Yeah. I think of it in terms of like big F and little f for failure, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm trying to create something new, I would rather have a million little f failures that I learn from and I can iterate and I can refine that idea into something that may shape into something bigger versus spending an enormous amount of time working in a vacuum only to get a big F failure at the end. Those hurt much more than the little jabs. And so we should almost have a different word for the little F failures that go along the
I like
path,
that.
right? Because they're really not failures. Like you said, failure, we learn it's final. You just failed. And it's
Yeah.
it's not really. The path towards success is littered with tons of little failures. And so we almost need a different word for that. But
And I think
um
a lot of entrepreneurs and people who accept failure or talk about it, I'm not exactly sure that safety, like I bet in a room where people don't actually accept failure and you could lose your job and the boss is like, it's okay, you can fail. It has to be genuinely accepted, like honored, respected, brought to life in a way that shows safety around failure. Then you stop trying, that's the actual failure. When you stop trying, that's where it just dies on the vine. And so one of the things that I express is like, it's interesting. I have engineers in my class and I have people going for a medical degree. And the reason I like them so much is because they make this very strong point to the rest of the students. An engineering failure could be a catastrophe. A medical fail can be somebody's life. You can't, we have insurance systems in ways to absolutely prevent it. I said, then practice feeling like hell on everything else and get used to the experience, what smells and feels like it's heading towards a fail. Understand that moment before you get to somebody's life and figure out what it looks like. Know it like an angry monster in your life and make a handshake and say, I'm going to get to know you, but I'm not going to let you hurt anybody. And I'm not going to let you take over my building in engineering a building that collapses on itself. But right up until that spot, I'm going to figure out failure. And when you kind of voice it and put it in that way, they don't have much of a comeback. Because I'm not saying fail at your job. Fail as much as you can in everything else that you can think of, so you know what it looks like. So you can try to avoid those really big failures that hurt people. So try it and figure out what that is. But it should be a different word. There should be different levels of it. And you hear, the Shark Tank moments are really weird, but they're very educational because they give you this master class of like, I don't believe in you. I don't believe in this. I don't think that's going to work. When you see something like that, those end up being not necessarily the wisest way. It's not real, but it's good television. And it shows you don't have this, I'm not investing. That's real. It happens. That's the kind of thing. But get better at telling your story. Figure out, learn from what they said and grow it and figure out what else you need to do.
Yeah, this brings to mind also, I was having a conversation just a few days ago with a family friend who's starting a dentistry practice and she's trying
Mm.
to change the experience.
Mm.
And I started going down the path of some innovation principles. If you think about types of innovation, like the 10 types of innovation by Dublin Group. They think in terms of strategy, systems, and experience. And so if you think about how Uber disrupted their industry versus taxis, they didn't necessarily create new technology, like cell
Right.
phones and the internet was all there. They changed the experience, they changed the service, they changed the network, the structure. There are so many things where they innovated that were just sitting there ripe for the picking, but taxis weren't thinking about it because they had a monopoly. And then they come along, change the entire experience, but didn't create any new technology. And you can think about the same thing with like Netflix disrupting Blockbuster. It's
Yeah.
still movies, but now they're
Yeah.
streaming. They're leveraging
Yeah.
technology that was there. And as I think about your experiences, I think about all these 10 types of innovation as well, where you just tweak those levers
Hmm.
and you know about them all and play them in such a way that you're like, how do I leverage these different types of innovation to create a whole new experience? And it brought me back to that conversation with my friend about the dentistry office because I was telling her, I'm like, if you want to change the experience, and you also have very tight margins. So you were saying before budget comes into play. How would you change the experience of somebody walking into a dentist's office? So it's now a pleasant one versus a terrifying one, and something that maybe brings families together so that the parent isn't dreading taking their child to the dentist. It's more of a pleasant experience that grows with them over time. And I just was thinking about all these things as you were
Yeah.
thinking about that experience in the family. I'm like, how would you bring that to a dentistry office?
So how did the the information that we shared through this podcast together, if you were prompted now, encouraged, what would that space look like from what we talked about? What would your innovative mind say now? How would you now speak with your friend around the dentist industry and suggest, and now that you're kind of like innovating and thinking through it, what would be some ways you think could change the industry so she has a unique approach to dentistry?
Well, a lot of what we spoke about had to do with family and
Mm,
creating an experience between the family members. And so her dentistry is going to be for all ages, so adults and children, but children don't go there by themselves. So at the very start, you can think about what that, from the minute they walk through the door, what that experience is like with the parent, with the child, with the grandfather, whoever it is, to kind of build an experience that's enhanced by the technology.
mhm.
Um, and creates a safe trusted space versus too sterile, too scary. It's more like, oh, I enjoy this because it creates a whole imagination and a journey for me as I'm walking down this hallway with my grandfather. So that's the first thing that comes to mind based on this conversation.
That's cool. So it dentistry, as for myself too, is has a lot of baggage because the industry itself hasn't changed as much as other medical professions. And like the first thing you do when you meet a dentist often is you come out of the waiting room and then you sit in the chair with everything. They're on top of you. Everything's happening and they're going to talk and they're going to put x-rays in. They're being very kind and they're talking about it, but you've lost control. You don't have any way to maneuver it. So user-friendly machines that allowed somebody to turn something on or be able to see the x-ray in front of them or all the things that gave them an interactive level of engagement and power and understanding, like not candy coating any of it, like just saying, this is how you got to get into the tooth, like all these things happen. It's like, this is my job. This is what I have to do. But I want you to do these jobs before I get there and have a sense like you can take on a relationship with the dentist where you have input and it's just not all happening to you. You're succeeding together. And that kind of thing resets how people think about it from time moving forward. I don't know. It probably could reset like the arm Pretzler. It could reset adults too, like giving them options to take part of it.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
you've been tremendously generous with your time. So just in the interest of it, I would like to finish off with two more questions. Um, Really expansive. If we think about, if we look ahead, uh, in I could spend another 3 hours on this, right? Because so many different questions come to mind. I think about Pokemon and
Hmm.
what that must have done to the industry, thinking now how we use this immersive virtual reality where we can kind of see cartoons walking around us and play a video game on that. But nonetheless, if we think about all these technologies and AIs in there, virtual reality and all these different things, what do you see as the next big trend in the world of immersive play and fantasy? And how do you think these innovations will evolve in the coming years and what role they'll play in shaping how we imagine and interact with the world around us?
So, I I I'm feeling this intense pressure like I did when the gaming world is becoming prolific, around AI. And I normally, what people, as they go on one side or the other, it's scary. It's creating itself, robotic, emotional robots, coming in to your lives, agents deciding, agent to agent, no human in the loop anymore, all these things that are going on, healthcare decision making. There's so much advancement. It's very, very cool. But that language model, that learning, has always been a part of this system of software, that has been training on itself, and it's using what it's been trained on to create the models that are moving forward. So, what's missing out of that observation? How is it that that ability to collect all that data is old data, things that have been inputting, learning on itself? Can we give it something else to learn on? What would it be? If we had a choice to reset data, not AI, but reset data so that it had wisdom and memories of things that are contained and consensual, that were more observational, like the way I like to look at is how can we use the same devices that we're entertaining with to observe people? What what way can we use less threatening environments to collect data, not just of human beings, but living things? What about all this information that we're just not smart enough yet to know, but we can be through the use of technology, how trees are talking? And I'm not trying to be weird or anything. I'm just saying,
No, I get it. Yeah, they do.
yeah, that it's how this whole thing works. And then that very rare data that's not abundant, but siloed and protected and consensual and observant and not extracted. It's not taken and analyzed and used to train. It is just preparing itself for its value to come into the system at some point. Once it does, what happens to the training models after that? And where are we getting? It's human to human conversations. Like if I could sit in Magic Quest and observe like I do with all these prolific multimodal devices, listening, body temperature, everything that's going around it, not using it yet. When it becomes important to AI, and it's part of that, we have a better system because we're using natural data, data in the wild. We're not just using humans talking to a machine. We're not telling it how to prompt us. There's no interruption. There's no extraction. It's purely humans being humans in the most human way. And our job up to that point that it meets is this growing wisdom that is authentic. And once it feeds into these model learning training machines, what becomes of it? What does it become with these new training meals on it? And then if you go past the restrictions in safe environments, this is, what does it explode in? What are we going to solve? What are we going to learn? What is the AI then, who's smarter than smarter than smarter, is going to be able to look at this data and saying, I actually hear the pattern in the trees. You know what it's saying? I can hear it. You can't, I can. All of those things start coming to life. What are we going to solve? How do we become better humans? What was the conversation between two people that made that whole conversation go sideways? How do we use the collection of that data? So that's the new IP I'm working on. And that's the way of looking at that rare rhodium, like the most rare metal in the world, is sacred, and it's sovereign, and we don't know exactly how it's going to affect it. Keep it that way for now. Silent a bit. Don't disturb it. Don't try to make it or analyze it and turn it into something. Just sit and watch. Let's see what. Don't try to make it into anything yet. Let's just watch for a while. And when that timing is ready, hopefully someday it will be ready very soon. I'm not thinking years from now, I'm thinking urgently. that it's valuable. You say, "Oh my gosh, that person doesn't have that data." And I don't know what it's gonna do to my system once it's not just language models and all that. It's very hard to understand. It is a software thing. It's, like but it's my brain saying what's missing from AI. And it's where's those models? Where is that coming from? How are we collecting that data? Oh, you know what? In my environments, there are people just playing and having experiences, and they're everywhere. And the same machines I'm using to project an image, there's still cameras in that same place, hearing sounds, effects. Can I prompt when somebody gets scared? What happens when they're scared? Let's see what it looks like. And in other invited environments that are treating it with consent, knowing it's not going anywhere until humanity's ready to have real observation put into the mix of innovation.
That's fascinating. It's almost like saying taking taking a two-dimensional model and making it into four dimensions,
Oh,
picking up all these different
lovely.
signals.
I love that.
It's I really enjoy this time, and I think it's such a fascinating world that you live in and get to play in and get to change other people's lives with it. And I would imagine there's plenty of people listening to this saying, "How do I do that?" So, with my final question, um, what kind of advice would you give to the future generation of playologists, imagination people, just people that are like, wow, whatever Denise is saying, I really, really like. And either they want to do this in a dedicated way by jumping into this field, or they want to take nuggets of it into the world that they live in. And they want to be able to accentuate it and enrich it by some of the things that they learned here. What kind of advice would you give to these people about this field and how to take the best out of it to be able to apply to their lives?
Remember our conversations with play. Be sure to understand it's a very powerful skill. The way you played as a kid, and as you go through your journey, don't forget those things because they are your superpower. Find a way to bring them back into your life in a way that makes sense. It doesn't have to be the exact play, but a form of it. Because a lot of people, when they say, I played with Legos, and then they realize they're an engineer, they don't make that connection. They don't snap those bricks together until they go, oh, he's like, yes, it's your superpower. You already knew those things. They satisfied you. They made you feel safe. You knew what you were doing. The ability to look at invention as all the things academic and imagination together. It's like this wild fold in of an incredible mixing pot of wonderment where you know that there's knowledge and science and intelligence and active marketing. It's like the whole thing, invention goes end to end. You don't just create art or whatever the purpose of a creation is or tell a story. You're trying to bring it to market in such a way that it benefits or it exceeds what, the power of what you've invented. The seed, little planted seed goes into the next start. So see invention is the full gamut of education. And what you need to be a prolific business person as well is to think about invention as a style. The other thing I would think of is even just getting into theme parks and the storytelling, if you can remember that stories should feel like experiences, even if they're a book. If you're writing and you can almost smell it and you can touch it, you think like a theme park designer the entire time you're writing something or you're creating something. Even a hospital or dentist feel to it. When you're in the architecture of it, think that you're building a theme park. Someone's going to walk in and they're going to go through this even if it's just the written words that are bouncing off the page, because storytelling at its very best is experiential and it's mostly emotionally experiential and it connects to people and connects them to each other. Be a part of something. Create things that have purpose and meaning. I know we say those words, but that really has to go with figure out everyone belongs. Feel like you belong to something, feel powerful what you belong in, whether it is your skill, your superpower, your imagination, or if it's your ability, your math skills, your ability to code, whatever it is, that belonging or part of something bigger. And don't be afraid of failing. Let it those little failures, the little F's and the big F's become a part of your lifestyle, and those big F's will get much, much rarer because you've had so many turn cycles on the smaller ones so that you don't have to get to the big F. But if you do, what did you learn from it? What came out of it? How that worked? Or was there something you were actually not paying attention to, you didn't observe, which is the last one? Don't forget about the pretzlers. The people on the site, they're your market, actually. Always work to them, the ones you left out, because they're so close. I'm not talking about people who never even come. I'm talking about in anything, apply for a job, whatever. Why aren't they in it? And figure out why, and then your net widens. Your entire business plan takes a new shape, and your ability to code or to create experiences or the UX to it, or the whole idea that you can reach out and be a part of a larger whole, because they want to belong too. They want to never stop playing. They want to be a part of something. They are afraid of failing. They don't want to embarrass themselves. If you figure out how to create those environments, then the experience itself is just like the icing on the cake. You can get all these mechanisms into place and have that cycle through. And look at the intelligence in the room with AI that's coming in it. We got to stop the fight around if it's good or not. Just make it good. Make it right. Make it authentic. Stop listening to just ourselves of the data that's already in there. Listen to what's not there. Observe how it's not getting that information. Find ways to get that information into this very smart machine so that when we get to that moment where we have so much knowledge and wisdom and intelligence, actually not wisdom, that sapience of human beingness can only be ours. A machine can never do that. So hold it and be a more powerful sapient human. How can you be the most powerful, inventive one you can be?
Well, with that, Denise, this has been so much fun. I feel like my level of imagination has just expanded another concentric circle just by talking to you for an hour. It's been so much fun getting to know you, and truly a privilege getting to interview you here. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, I'm so glad that I'm just so honored you had me. It was so much fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
That was Denise Weston. Now, Unnatural Signals.
What Denise shows us is that the most powerful technologies don't feel like technology at all. They feel like memory. The real innovation in immersive play isn't about dazzling a single user. It's about designing for everyone in the room. When experiences work for children, parents, and grandparents at the same time, something rare happens. Engagement becomes shared and markets quietly expand. What makes these experiences last is intentional memory design. Story, choice, and a sense of shared success reset how people feel about participation itself. That emotional imprint becomes a differentiator, not the hardware. And beneath it all is something very old. Play works because it taps into primal human behaviors, collecting, imaging, gathering, exploring together. By bringing digital experiences back into physical space, these systems reconnect people to instincts we've carried for thousands of years. The result isn't novelty, it's relevance that endures.
Thanks for listening to Unnatural Selection. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone shaping the future. Explore more at unnaturalselection.net and connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Until next time, keep evolving.